You tweeted it out yesterday morning, and the tweet said this: "There is no other second-year player in the NFL that has more on his shoulders in determining the success of the franchise this season than Desmond Ridder." And we kind of can talk about Ridder and the Falcons and also expand it further. Some other second-year players that are going to be impactful for their teams going forward here. But Ridder, I think, is in a really interesting spot, and just kind of highlighting how these second-year guys can really elevate things. I mean, like, why did you decide to kind of go with Desmond Ridder as the face of this article? That's a really good theme in general.
Well, I thought, because I was trying to figure out, I was going through the depth charts and looking at second-year players, and I picked about 5 or 6 guys that kind of need to have big years. But then I looked at it and I said, like, nobody needs to have a bigger year than Ridder. So then I went back and I watched all the 4 games that Ridder played in, and starting with New Orleans and ending with Tampa. And he played against Arizona and Baltimore. And I tried to study him in the sense that understanding that they were keeping it very simple for him, and that they were trying to make sure that he got his feet wet, as I wrote about, and didn't make any mistakes and didn't hinder his confidence going into next season. But it got me thinking about, when you're a farmer in this world, you have to plant a field and you hope things come in. You've got so many variables in your life that you can't control: the water, the sprinkling, the weather, and the wind, and all these things, right? So Arthur Smith is almost like the farmer. He's got to control this one huge variable. Can he get Ridder to play at a high level? And people will say, this is one of the great things about the Van Gundy interview that I loved, is people have these takes, well, the receivers make the quarterback better. No, that's completely bullshit. That's completely bullshit. Like, did the receivers make Trey Lance better? Right? Did the receivers make Trey Lance better? Did the receivers make Carson Wentz better in Washington? I don't think so. Did the quarterback make the receivers better? Brock Purdy does, right? The quarterback is the driving force to making them better, where they throw the ball, the location, the timing, the rhythm, all those things. So this nonsense, well, we're putting better skill around them. It's bullshit. It's complete fucking bullshit. And so, like, Ridder has to step forward. And I think one of the things that I learned in my career, a lot of things I've learned in my career, is sometimes we fall in love with the hard worker. Sometimes we fall in love with the great character kid too much. And we don't look at the production, because Ridder's one of the great kids, right? He works hard. He's from a winning program. He's overcome obstacles in his life. The reason he's a third-round pick, Femi, is because he was so inconsistent in what he was doing.
Mm-hmm. No, and I think that the character, I think, is a really good part of it, because I think character. What do you say? The saying from Belichick, say character sets the floor. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Talent sets the floor. Character sets the ceiling.
Character sets the ceiling there. So it's like, it's easy to see why somebody would buy. Oh, this guy's a character guy. He's going to be able to reach his potential because he's going to work at it and work hard. But like you mentioned, what if that potential is not very high? There's a lot of people out there who have really good character and work really hard. But if you're not that talented, and I'm not saying that Ridder's not talented. Yeah.
I don't think it's fair to say he's not talented. I think what it's fair to say is he's not consistently talented. Like, there's too many times that he hasn't been able to, do the things. Like the first game against New Orleans, he was god-awful, right? I mean, he doesn't throw a touchdown pass until week 4 of the week 18, but it was week 4 for him. He was very careful with the football. He was very mechanical in his play. And I think, to me, the inconsistencies are what drives you crazy, because there's moments when you watch him play against Notre Dame and say, oh, man, he could be he could be Dak Prescott. He could be really good. And then the next thing you know, not so sure. So you go through that kind of, yes, the zig, the zag, all that, and I think that's what it is. He has talent. He doesn't have consistent talent, which is what we never talk enough about. We don't talk enough about player. We see a flash, but we don't see enough of the consistencies. It's a little bit like you have to watch. If you're going to sign a free agent in football, you need to watch the entire season of that free agent, not the clips of the free agent. You have to learn if you can live with the player. Could I live with this guy? Because there's going to be warts. There's going to be problems. You know this. And if you can't live with the player, it's hard.
You mentioned the inconsistencies. Where do they lie in Desmond Ridder's game? Is it with accuracy, decision-making?
I think it's accuracy.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's accuracy. I don't think he has a great ability to process as quickly as he needs to. Now, maybe that'll correct. Now, in Arthur Smith's offense, it's all play action.
Mm-hmm.
It's all going to be separate the defense and throw it here or there. He did not run the triangle passing game. He ran a high-low passing game when he was playing for him. So it's either you're throwing here or you're throwing there. If it's man coverage, this guy will break open. If it's zone, here's where we want to go with the football. And once his head turned to the side he was throwing to, that's where he was throwing to. Right? That's where he was throwing to. So once you get 4 games of that, right, the defensive backs are like, once he turns his head, just go. Just go.
You know, I wonder what the ceiling is for their team, because if he plays well, they're set up to be a pretty good offense. But then you mentioned there that, like, hey, we don't have a lot of sample size on him, only 4 games. Arthur Smith's offense was kind of simplifying things for him in that year one to kind of keep the confidence up there. Do you see a player that can grow into that role of being a productive quarterback? Not maybe a top 5, top 10 quarterback, but at least like maybe a middle of the road guy who can at least be productive and take care of a football.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm not sure of. I don't have the confidence without the evidence. Arthur Smith does. And so what I try to point out in my column is Arthur banking on the character and the kid more than he's banking on what he's seen? And I don't know the answer to that. What I do know is that they've made this decision. And what I wrote was this a decision that they had to make, or was it a decision they wanted to make, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, this is the option they chose. I didn't see anything in those 4 games that would lend me to think, okay, yeah, we got this guy. This guy's going to be really good. This guy's got it, And it's concerning because Purdy was really good, and he was an experienced quarterback. Lamar, when he came and played as a rookie, he was really good. He was experienced. Ridder, you can't say that he's not experienced. He played a lot of games. So that kind of worries you. Remember, last year, Atlanta was 31st in passing attempts, 31st in passing yards. I mean, they don't want to throw the football. They want to slow the game down, and they want to play 4 corners. I think, and what I try to do is if you're betting the over at 7.5 on Atlanta, like some people are, and winning the South like some people are, all of this is going to rest with your confidence in that guy.
Yeah, they've been the most perplexing team for me this offseason, just evaluating what could happen in 2023, because I don't know what we're going to see from Ridder. Like you said, like I only watched 2 games of Desmond Ridder. I watched the Ravens game. I had to bet on that when I bet the Falcons in that game. The way that game played out, like they should have been closer. They might have even won that game, honestly. A couple things went wrong in the red zone. Then I watched that Cardinals game, that last one there, which, I mean,
that was his best game. Yeah. He led him on a comeback from behind drive. Yeah. He led him on the drive,
Yeah, don't ask me why I was watching that game in Week 18. That game was it's like, what are we doing here? But I thought he was okay. Like, to me, honestly, when I watched him, he kind of reminded me, and I've said this before, I think on the podcast, or maybe it was on the Lombardi line on VSiN, but it was like a little bit of like a poor man's Ryan Tannehill, a little bit. Like, it's like kind of play action quarterback, will kind of do what is scripted there. But like you mentioned with the whole Trubisky saying that, hey, if it's how we practice it, it'll look good, but if it's not how we practice it, it's not going to look good. It's going to kind of fall apart. Like, do you see a little bit of Tannehill in Desmond Ridder when you watch him? I know they played in a similar offense there under Arthur Smith.
Yeah, I think it's more you see the offense than you see Tannehill. I mean, I always felt Tannehill was a better athlete than quarterback. I never feel like with Tannehill it's instinctive. I think it's robotic. I do see robotic in Ridder. But, I mean, look, he's got a whole off season. He's probably buzzed light years ahead of it, of where he was last year. We know this for a fact. But, look, if you stop the run of Atlanta, will you stop their offense? The difference is going to be this year is Mariota, when he was the quarterback, they could run, right? They had that 6-back attack going pretty good. Mm-hmm. Ridder's not really that guy. He's not really he had 60 yards rushing last year. He's not that runner.
Yeah. No, he wants to kind of throw from the pocket there versus get out there and run.